Good evening, and welcome everyone to the second annual Houston Literary Awards. Last year, Sally Swanson and the Houston Public Library Foundation had an inspired idea to support libraries and recognize local authors for literary contributions that are positively impacting readers of all ages around the world. That inspiration led to the Houston Literary Awards, where the foundation selected 5 authors to receive their beautiful Crystal Award of Excellence, and then invited the public to nominate and select a 6th author to receive a Reader's Choice Award as well. Last October, the Elegant Black Tie event took place in person. Tonight, we are celebrating virtually with as much excitement and enthusiasm and support for libraries, for reading, and especially for our honored authors. This year, after the presentation, be sure to bid on silent auction items that include great deals and Instabuys. Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Leslie, a grateful recipient of one of the 2019 Literary Excellence Awards. Since I was a boy, my passion was to write books. The professional journey to realizing my dream has included being a teacher, librarian, professor, and now keynote speaker, editor, writing coach, and publisher. Everything I love most revolves around books, and nothing makes me prouder than to let people know I am an author. We are fortunate in Houston to have a thriving literary community and public administrators who so enthusiastically support libraries and literacy. One of our greatest advocates is our mayor, the Honorable Sylvester Turner. He has graciously agreed to participate in our event by providing some opening remarks. Here now is Mayor Sylvester Turner.
Thank you, Roger, and look, and congratulations to you. And we are so very proud of you and your accomplishments. And I want to thank you for that very kind and generous introduction, and for being the master of ceremonies for the second annual Houston Literary Awards. They could not have chosen a better person. The city of Houston is extremely proud of our literary community. Our talented local authors make art out of words and are an integral element of Houston's exceptional art scene, elevating Houston in the eyes of the creative world. As mayor, I want to congratulate the 2020 Literary Excellence awardees, Andrea White, Justin Cronin, Rashonda Tate Billingsley, Vasha Bahaz, Gwendolyn Zapata. Your achievements are celebrated on bestseller lists and especially appreciated right here in the city of Houston. I also want to commend Leisha Green Ellis and the Houston Public Library Foundation's Board of Directors for their creativity and tenacity for continuing with tonight's program in the virtual space. Thank you. The pandemic has caused many changes to Houston, and having a celebration in a safe virtual environment is just what we need. The Houston Public Library Foundation has done a fabulous job with their selections and in moderating the exciting 2020 Reader's Choice Awards. The public nominated and then voted on their favorite local authors, and the winner will be announced later in the program. I also appreciate the work of the Houston Public Library Foundation when it comes to raising funds for the Houston Public Library and manages the library's endowment. Funding from the foundation supports capital improvement projects and a variety of exciting and engaging library programs that in turn are offered free to the public. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Rhea Lawson for the work that she's doing with the Houston Public Library. I want to congratulate Roger, tonight's Master of Ceremonies, on his achievements as an author. Roger, you were celebrated as a Literary Excellence Awardee last year and enjoyed it so much that I hear you volunteered to help the foundation with this year's program. I send my sincere thanks and congratulations to everyone participating in tonight's event, and to those who share their resources to make library programs possible. Your philanthropy is needed and wisely used. And I'm sending the program back to you, Roger, and to all our talented authors. Congratulations to each and every one of you. We are so Houston proud.
Thank you again, Mayor Sylvester Turner, for showing such support for this wonderful event. And here's the reason we've gathered tonight: to recognize the authors who will be receiving an award. Congratulations to our 2020 Literary Excellence Award winners. Justin Cronin.
Hey, Roger, I can't see my video, so I'll have to just, wait a minute, there we go, start my video. There we go. Hi, and thanks so much. I'm honored and delighted to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Gwendolyn Zepeda.
Hey, everybody. I don't know if you can see me, but it's great to see you all.
Varsha Bajaj.
Hey everybody, I'm Varsha Bajaj and I write for children of all ages.
Rashonda Tate Billingsley.
Hello all, and I am so excited to be here.
And Andrea White.
Nice to see everybody. It's great to be in a community of writers and readers, and I'm looking forward to tonight. Thanks, Roger.
So the audience can get to know you better, I'd like to ask each of you a question. Gwendolyn, I'd like to start with you. If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I think I would tell myself, you might not sell movie rights to any of these books, but you should keep writing because it's totally going to be worth it, I promise.
Wonderful, thank you. Andrea White, you're an extensive traveler. Tell us about some literary pilgrimages you've been on.
Well, I'm going to tell you about one I made in Houston. I drove out about twice a month to a brick house, very ordinary, dog barking on the front porch, and to take a writing class with fellow award winner here tonight, Justin Cronin. And by the exterior of that house, you would never know that it was the physical home of a vampire series that spanned centuries, and just a amazing imagination. And so my own literary pilgrimage took place in Houston, where I learned to, learn more about the craft of writing.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rashonda Tate Billingsley, writers are readers. What have you read that made you think differently about fiction?
I have always been an avid reader, loved reading ever since I was a little girl. But my favorite book that made me fall in love was a book by Judy Blume called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That's the book that made me love reading, and the book that made me love writing and want to be a writer was I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou.
Beautiful choices, excellent. Varsha Bajaj, share with us any early life experiences that taught you about the power of language.
So I'm going to take you back to my 5th grade classroom, Roger. And that was in Mumbai, India. And we had a very brave and remarkable teacher who announced to a rather large class of 50+ 10-year-olds that she was going to tell us a story. She was met by cheers, but more groans and rolled eyes. Undaunted, she continued, she persisted, and she told us a story. It was Kabuliwala by Tagore. And Tagore, by the way, was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize in Literature back in 1913. So over the course of 2 class periods, she had us mesmerized, hanging on to every word. And at the end of the story, many, including me, were wiping away tears. And I have never forgotten that experience. To me, that was a demonstration of the power of words to both connect and to inspire.
Fantastic. And Justin Cronin, do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people will find?
Yes, I love this question because I put everything in there. All my books are full of Easter eggs, as well as little gifts to people. I think I use all of my friends' names at one point or another, including Andrea. Andrea, I think I've used your name at least once. I always have the names of 2 people in my books. They were interns of mine when I was teaching at Writers Conference many years ago. Jenny Smith and Chase Bodine, and they were my sort of gophers. One of them has gone on to be a very well-respected writer, but in every one of my books, I put somewhere both of their names as a kind of good luck charm, and they're the only people who know this. But I also like to kind of honor other books. A lot of writers sort of pretend that the book they're writing is the only book ever written, and that's really not true. There's a huge bookshelf behind all of us. And so throughout the Passage trilogy, for instance, there are large set pieces and whole chapters that are actually sort of extended love letters to books and stories that were important to me. In the Passage, there's one chapter that it's almost lifted whole cloth from the Odyssey. And the 12, there's a chapter which only one person has ever noticed this. It is an extended homage to Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, which I wrote my sophomore essay on in college. And it's really kind of not what you'd expect in a vampire apocalypse novel, a long chapter devoted to Mrs. Dalloway. And then there was another small set piece that was for my favorite book as a kid, which was a wonderful apocalyptic novel called Earth Abides by George Stewart. And I love doing this stuff. It's kind of a game for me. There's millions of little details like this. There's stuff with numbers. The 12 has exactly 12 sections. There are all these moments when there are 12 characters in a room. And I do this stuff constantly just to kind of like amuse myself, I think.
That's fantastic. It is so fun to interact with a book. And when your readers understand and appreciate what you're doing and catch on, that's part of the fun of the whole literary journey. So, and this is for anyone in particular, can you describe the favorite book of your own that you've written so far and why that particular book holds a special place in your heart? Anyone want to try that one?
Well, I'll jump in. So one of the things, it's really difficult. People always say, which one is your favorite book? And that's hard. That's kind of like saying, which one of your kids do you like best? Though my daughters would say, it's the boy, it's the little boy. But one of the ones that is most special to me is one called The Secret She Kept. It is actually one of my books that was made into a movie because it deals with mental illness. And I write fiction, I'm just making up these stories, but to have people say, okay, this book changed my life, or this book impacted my life, I've had that the most from that book. So it really resonates and is very special to me for that reason.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Rashonda, was there anything unique about the writing of that book compared to your others? Did it take longer? Did it involve more research? Did you have to, when I teach my writing courses and when I coach writing, I say, in that first draft, you really have to bare your soul. Did that happen for you in particular with this book? Is that one of the reasons why it resonates with you?
I did. It did. And one of the reasons is because in my family, we have some mental challenges, some relatives with mental challenges, but we sweep it under the rug. That's something we don't talk about. And so that was something that I wanted to address. So shining that light on my own family with someone who's not used to talking about it, it resonated a lot. And I did a lot of research because while it's fiction, what I did not want is someone reading this and saying, okay, here's a medication she wrote about. Let me go try this. So I really did extensive research.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Rashonda. Would one other person like to field that same question? Is there a particular book that you've written that for whatever reason really resonates with you personally? And if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience why that is.
So Roger, my latest book, Count Me In, came out last year, and it's special to me because it was a contender for the Global Read Aloud 2019-2020. And to me, since my formative experience was having a story told to a class, to have my book being read to classrooms kind of brings it full circle. And we all know how we love full circles, right? As writers and authors. So that is very special to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'll just ask one, Andrea, so why did you write about Antarctica? It's interesting that you did, because one of my books is actually a biography of Paul Seipel, who was the first American teenager to go to Antarctica. And he ended up being the scientist who spent the most years there. So I have a real affinity for Antarctica and books about it. So I'm just curious, why did you write about Antarctica? What led to that book and that idea?
You know, I just fell in love with the Robert F. Scott expedition. I get most of my ideas for books from other books that I've read, and I love to try to make history come alive for kids. And so Antarctica was a great springboard to do that expedition, particularly because the men on it are so tough, even by our standards today, and so crazy almost, you know, in their drive for exploration and their ability to endure so much physical pain and uncertainty.
It is incredible what the human spirit can endure when it's tested. Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Andrea. And Gwendolyn, I'm just wondering, I know you write poetry. I know that is one of your main areas of writing. So how is it that we make poetry meaningful for people? How is it that you connect with people through your poetry? Or do you want to talk a little bit? Can you share a little bit about your process or your creative method? What is it in your process that brings the poetry forth for you?
So I don't write any poem unless something has generated a really strong feeling in me. And then writing the poem happens. It's just an exercise of trying to convey that feeling to other people. And it's especially challenging if it's an unusual feeling, if that makes sense. I mean, anybody can write about being in love or liking nature or whatever, but I like to get stuck in traffic on 290 and just have a random feeling because of something I saw out the window, and then make a note on my phone and say, if I can capture that and make one other human being say, oh, I know that feeling, then I've succeeded.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Gwendolyn. I love all of your responses. And even though we're meeting this year virtually, clearly I can tell the sentiments about writing, language, and even about being honored tonight are heartfelt. As Gwendolyn said, it's all about the feelings. So congratulations, 2020 awardees. It's time now to open the boxes and to see your awards.
Boxes.
We confessed, Roger, many of us opened ours beforehand and recycled our boxes. So.
Andrea, I went into the recycling to find my box.
Oh my goodness, that was over and beyond.
I have my box.
I didn't. I saved mine like Christmas.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
My daughter cleaned up my office and I panicked right before the ceremony. And she said, it's on the shelf already. So she had already put it up.
Thank
So,
you.
author, I'd
Thank
like you to share, what does receiving this Literary Excellence Award mean to you? And I'd like each of you to answer the question in any order, but I'm just curious, what does receiving this Literary Excellence Award mean to you?
Encouragement and fun to be with all of you fellow authors tonight. It's a great way to spend a Saturday night.
Thank you, Andrea.
I'll second that, but this means a lot to me because I came to Houston in 2003 for a job at Rice, and it became my literary home, and it's where I've written most of my books, and a lot of them are set in Texas and set in Houston, and I always needed a home like that, so it's a wonderful honor.
And Justin, are you involved in a lot of the writing groups locally as well, like the Houston Writers Guild and everything? Do you?
Not so much. I mean, I still teach at Rice. I teach one class a year at Rice, and that keeps me pretty busy. And I enjoy it a lot. So that's really kind of, that's where I interact mostly with new writers.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Justin. Someone else?
So, okay, I'll go. As a native Houstonian and a product of HISD schools, and as someone who spent summers losing herself in Vincent Branch Public Library, which is a Houston public library, this is an extreme honor for me. I am so excited to receive it. And also to let my mother, who used to always say, you can't have a career making up stories and lying, I'd say to my mom, how you like me now?
I love that. That's great. One of the most inspiring things that ever prompted me to continue my pursuit of being a writer is I had someone very well intentioned, but it wasn't someone I knew very well, but he asked if I was in college, and I was in an undergraduate school at the time, and I was an English major, and I said, yes, I'm going to be a writer. And he said, you can't make a living being a writer. And that was the impetus for my deciding, if people think it can't be done, then it must be a quest worth pursuing for a lifetime.
Absolutely. By book 30, she was like, I knew you could do it.
That's great. Great. Varsha, would you share with us what this award means to you?
Yes. So I came to America in the fall of 1986, and I moved to Houston in the fall of 1998. So I did come here as fast as I could. So as an immigrant and a relatively new resident of this amazing, diverse city, I feel accepted, I feel embraced, and so I would like to thank the Houston Public Library Foundation for giving me this nice, shiny crystal award.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I can attest, as a person who was a librarian for many years as part of my career, there is no greater advocate for writers and books than a librarian. They will book talk your books. They will encourage people to read your books, find your books, follow you as a fan. Your local librarians in schools and in the public library are definitely your greatest advocates. I encourage anyone who writes to get to know their librarians in the area. Thank you, Varsha. Beautifully said.
Welcome.
Gwendolyn, would you share what this award means to you?
I'm going to copy Rashonda's answer and say I also grew up in Houston. I grew up in the 6th Ward, which is very close to downtown. So the downtown library was my library. And I think, I don't know if I could go back in a time machine and tell myself, sitting on those little primary colored couches they used to have in the basement children's room of that library, hey, someday you're going to get an award for being a writer. I don't think I would have believed it. So I'm not going to get emotional. I'm just going to say it makes me happy.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, one of the great things about being a writer is the opportunity to have situations like this where we get to interact with other people, because so much of our life is spent in isolation as writers. Unless you co-author books or works with other people, most of our work time is spent alone. So would anybody like to share any information about their connectedness and their networking with other people in the Houston literary community? Do you belong to certain groups? Do you get involved in regular networking workshops? Are you a beta reader? For people who don't know about writing and may not know about publishing, beta readers are groups of people who usually read each other's works and give feedback after the book has been edited and is almost ready to go to publication. They'll have a group of people who volunteer to read and give feedback on a book. So are any of you involved in any networking opportunities or organizations locally that help you stay connected so that you don't feel like you're out in this isolated world all your own writing all the time? Anyone?
Roger, I'm going to co-opt your question and pivot it to promotion. I recently, my last book, I got to edit Houston Noir, which was a collection published by Akashic. I don't know if you guys know, they do noir collections of every major city like on earth. So I got to edit that one, and it was a super awesome opportunity to handpick authors throughout Houston or with connections to Houston to let them write stories. Instead of me having a deadline, I got to push deadlines on other people. And that was probably a more enriching experience for me than anything I've ever written or published or done readings for, was getting to promote veteran and emerging Houston authors. So go buy the book on Amazon.com. Just kidding. That's not what this is about. But that was awesome for me to be able to give back to emerging authors instead of just talk about myself all the time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Glenda. Anyone else? Networking, professional connections, either here or anywhere in the world of literature?
I'm going to plug Houston SCBWI, which is the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And it's an organization that has chapters worldwide, but the Houston chapter has been amazingly supportive and my go-to group.
It's a fabulous organization. I belonged to it for several years. I used to be a book reviewer for Booklist, and I reviewed in the YA section. And so that started my connection, and that actually led to some of the YA books that I wrote, and that made the connection. And I don't know if it's still the case, but at one time it was the largest writing organization in the entire world. And
you know,
so,
I don't know if it's still the largest. It might be, but it's just an amazing organization that, I mean, I wouldn't be here without their conferences and seminars and just their support.
wonderful people, wonderful people. And if anyone out there is interested in writing for children, or you're looking for an illustrator, or you illustrate for children's books, that's a great place to network, because authors and illustrators both belong to the organization, and they often find each other at those annual conferences or at their monthly meetings. So great organization. Thank you, Varsha. Andrea, you were going to share something as well.
Well, no, I miss my writing class with Justin, the group that there, and I haven't really duplicated a group like that since, but
You were cool. That was
oh, it was a cool class. But I do read people's books, and this week I've read two of authors, and that can be fun, and it can also not be fun, you know. But anyway, I do think one of the things that as authors and people we need is feedback. And so, you know, in our works and in life. So it's a great thing to do, is to seek out feedback.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrea. And Justin, I know you say that you teach at Rice. So do you maintain connections to any of your former students, and have they gone on to do great things and you're very pleased with? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, well, I stay in touch with a lot of students anyway. I mean, the one thing that's always bothered me about teaching was that they just kind of sail into oblivion when the whole thing is over. And so a lot of my students happily have kept in touch. I've had a number of students who've gone on to do really, really well. And it's, oddly enough, it's not always who I would have thought. One student in particular, who I had many, many years ago when I was teaching actually at a small Catholic college in Philadelphia, he went on to write something called the Silver Linings Playbook, which—
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I felt a little jealous.
Wow.
I felt a little outdone by this kid. But I've had, you know, any number of students have gone on, and I know from the students I have now, I feel pretty confident that a number of them will go on to publish, and publish early. I think I've had some really, really talented students that I really love working with.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure they owe a great deal of their accomplishments to you and your feedback and your guidance as one of their professors. So congratulations to you too. I would imagine Silver Linings Playbook would not have happened if somewhere along the way that student hadn't had your guidance to show him or her something that made the difference.
Perhaps it wouldn't have, but anyway, I'm very proud of these kids. That's why I do it.
That's great. That's great. And I do know that many people who are writers at some point in their careers, either early when they're starting to develop their writing career, they become teachers, or after they're successful writers, they teach classes or workshops or teach at the colleges about creative writing or anything. And I can say from my own personal experience, I was a classroom teacher from 1985 up until 1996. And this reminds me of something you said, Justin. There are times in the classroom when I knew that I had gotten through to some of my students. By the end of the year, I just thought, wow, I think I reached that student. But there are others that I would just thought, I don't know what I could have done differently. I don't know how I could have approached differently, but I think I didn't really make an impact on that child the way I would have liked. And lo and behold, 20 years later, I'll get this little message on Facebook from one of those students I thought I didn't reach, and they'll say something about something I had said in class that made all the difference for them. So that's particularly heartwarming. And I guess the reverse is probably true too. There are some that I thought for sure I reached, and maybe they don't even remember who I am, but that comes with the territory of teaching. But that is part of the gift we have. As writers, we share a message, we share a theme, we share certain perspectives on the world that we would like other people to encounter and contemplate, debate perhaps. But in person, as teachers, as friends, as creative artists, one of the joys in life is just the opportunity to reach other people and know somehow that we have touched another life. I'm kind of curious to know some of your writing journeys. There are all different kinds of ways people get into writing. I speaking for myself, I knew when I was 13 years old I wanted to be a writer. That was just it, and my decision was made, and nothing was going to stand in my way, even though I had several different careers along the way. Would anybody like to share anything about your writer's journey? Anything unique or interesting, or anything that you think your audiences or your readers would like to know about?
Yeah, I'll go. So I actually self-published my first book because I could not get an agent. I queried agents and I got rejection letters left and right. I'd come home from rejection letters in the mailbox from places I hadn't even sent it, talking about don't send it to us. But I really believed in my manuscript. So I self-published it, and then I set out to spread the word. So for me, it was getting people across the country to find out about this book. And so I would do something, I would call bookstores across the country, and I'd say, hi, I'm looking for My Brother's Keeper by Rashonda Tate Billingsley. That was the name of the book. They'd say, we don't have it, never heard of it. I called back about 3 hours later. Hi, I'm looking for this book called My Brother's Keeper. And they'd say, and I repeated it over and over, and they'd say, we don't have it, but we need to get it because everybody's calling about this book. And it caught the attention of an agent who read it, loved it, and she sold it to Simon & Schuster. And that's how I got my book deal with them. And my 52nd book just came out. So it worked.
I love that story. What creativity and cleverness when it comes to just getting out there and making sure your work gets found. Nice story. Great, Rashonda. I'm sure you just inspired a whole bunch of people with some great ideas. Someone else, what about your writer's journey? How did it happen for you?
Well, I always say I became a writer because I forgot to go to law school, which is, well, it's what happens to a kid who's kind of a talker, and they always say, oh, go be a lawyer. And I kind of meant to, and I went to grad school at the University of Iowa, at the Writers Workshop, and I hadn't really done a lot of writing before I went there, but I had a story up in a workshop, and I was prepared, of course, like most young writers. I thought it was perfect. I was prepared to get, confetti thrown at me. I was going to get a parade, and that's not at all what happened. The story just got massacred, first by every student in the room, and then the teacher. And by about halfway through the class, and I'd been taking notes, and I stopped taking notes, but I had to look like I was taking notes. So I just kept writing over and over again, I will apply to law school. I will apply to law school. I will apply to law school. And the class ended and I thanked everybody and said, you know, it's wonderful. I appreciate all your helpful insights. And I left the building and I walked across the river to the law school and said, you know, I'd like to apply. And they said, it's too late. The deadline was yesterday. So now I'm a writer.
So in the long run, did that moment where you thought you were going to do something different and it couldn't work, did that feel, there's something that when I teach classes, I call fateful detours, where I think I know where I'm going, I have a direct plan, and life has a better plan for me because it can see farther into my future than I do. And I accept something that I think is not going to do it for me, and it turns out to be the perfect thing for me. Justin, was that perhaps a fateful detour for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like I said, my career actually comes about mostly from me not doing other things. I mean, I was meant to do something else, but I'd have a little bit of success as a writer. I'd sell a short story to a literary magazine or something. And then I got a college teaching job. And so in theory, I was supposed to still write. And it was like breadcrumbs. And I was prepared to fail at any moment. And actually never had an awful lot of hope that it was going to work, but it seemed to be the only thing that was keeping me from the unemployment line. So I just kept doing it. And after a while, it became, you know, I became a writer sort of by, and as I said, an absence of other pursuits.
Fantastic, fantastic. Anyone else, your writer's journey?
You know, I just think if you can quit writing, do, but
Yes.
I've never been able to quit.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It really is fortitude and persistence more than anything. And if it's in your heart to do it, you must. You
You've
just
got to
must.
do it.
Yeah, you just don't feel
Yeah.
fulfilled unless you do.
Yeah.
I get asked, I ask my students all the time, you know, what's the one piece of advice that you would give me if this is what I want to do? And I always say the same thing. Treat it like a job. And the first rule of any job is you must show up at work. You know, just show up every day. If it's an hour, it's 2 hours, whatever you have, but do it every day. And, you know, if you write 1,000 words a day and you know, in 100 days, you have a novel, actually.
Yes.
Keep going.
Yes. Great, great advice, Justin. Thank you. Yes, Varsha.
Writing is my second career, and I stumbled into it. So I was a counselor for both children and adults. We had moved to Houston. I had 2 little kids. I decided to take a short break, and my kids were great nappers, and so I started writing. And I wrote this little picture book because I had fallen in love with picture books while reading to them. And I wrote this little picture book and I submitted it at a SCBWI event to Little Brown. I mean, you know, I was going big, go big or go home. So I submitted it to Little Brown, and guess what? It sold. I mean, I thought it wasn't going to sell because I never heard from anybody for 6 months. 6 months later, I get a call from an editor. I thought one of my friends was pranking me, but it was real. I sold the book. It is still in print 16 years later and has sold a gazillion copies. And I was hooked. I was just hooked. I had to keep doing this. So yes, I agree with Andrea. If you can quit, you should, but I've never been able to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you all for your fabulous answers. I feel like I've learned something from all of you and that you've shared something with all of us that we can learn from. With Andrea, it's if this is yours to do, you will continue to do it. If you can quit, you will, but if it's in your heart to do it, you will do it. With Justin, it is just show up. You must consistently do what you do to develop the craft and skill of being a writer. With Gwendolyn, it's all about a feeling. It starts with what's resonating within you. What you feel matters, and when you express it in writing, you reach out to other people and allow them to feel it as well. With Varsha, it's taking risks. You've got to, once you've written something, you've got to send it out. Take the risk of sending it out. Something hurtful might happen, as Justin said in one of in his classes where he got the unexpected feedback, but it's helpful, it's enlightening, and sometimes you never know, something miraculous and spectacular will happen where you send out your first book and one of the major publishing houses gets it right away. And with Rashonda, it's all about opening your soul, baring your soul, getting in touch with what it is you feel you have to say, and then having the courage to say it. And if nobody wants to listen at first, then think of creative ways to make people think other people are already interested. It's a great strategy because really a writer's life is the creative part of it. It's the craft of the writing as well, but it's also the marketing. It's also the getting out into the public and sharing yourself and your work, either on social media or in person when we're able to do that more in person. So it really is a multifaceted career. Ideally, you know, I love the idea of just coming into my office every morning and writing and writing and writing, cranking out another manuscript, sending it out, having it published, having all these wonderful things happen. That isn't the whole picture. Part of the picture, as Rashonda pointed out, is marketing, sharing, letting people know. And sometimes in the process of how this goes, we reach a night like tonight, where somebody has not only read us, but somebody in an important organization like the Houston Public Library Association Foundation, they appreciate what we've done and they acknowledge you as they have tonight. So thank you, all of our award winners tonight, for this great dialogue, this great conversation. You've taught me a lot. I think you've taught our listeners and our viewers quite a bit. And I'm so proud of all of you. Thank you so much for participating in this discussion. I'm sure you've really thrilled a lot of people. And I bet Monday morning, a lot of people who didn't think they were going to sit down and write are going to sit down and write. Because all you authors have pursued a writer's life, you know that most of your time, focus, and energy is an act of faith. You embark on a new book project with no predictable expectation of how exactly the creative ideas will ebb and spark, where your characters will take you, or what, if anything, will come of the manuscript once you've completed it. Ever so rarely, your hard work brings you to a moment of recognition as wonderful as tonight. Once more, congratulations to all you winners. To reach its goal of honoring the most accomplished authors, the Houston Public Library Foundation only presents a few awards each year. But to expand their support, the foundation arranged a contest for all local authors by creating the Reader's Choice Award. As we transition from our Literary Excellence Awards to the Reader's Choice Award, I'd like to share with you a fun segment that ties in two of my passions: authors and movies. As an Academy Award expert, I often give keynote speeches where I relate any group, any topic, or any area of interest to Oscar-winning movies. So tonight, I'm going to share with you a brief presentation about authors in Oscar movies. The gist of tonight's presentation will be to focus on performances by great actors who have received Academy Awards or Academy Award nominations for playing actual authors in history. Near the beginning of the Academy, the very first person to win multiple nominations in the acting categories was actress Norma Shearer. She won for her first nominated performance in The Divorcee, but she might best be remembered for a movie called The Barretts of Wimpole Street, where she played British poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The gist of the movie focuses on Shearer's contentious relationship with her father, played by Charles Laughton. Throughout the movie, Elizabeth Barrett Browning's father keeps her confined in the house and refuses to ever let her get married. However, a clandestine correspondence with a fellow poet, Robert Browning, might just hold the key to opening up her life to something new and wonderful. Throughout the 1930s, Paul Muni was considered the actor with 1,000 faces because he loved to immerse himself so dramatically in his roles that he was virtually unrecognizable in the movies he was in. In 1936, he won Best Actor for The Story of Louis Pasteur, and the next year, he tackled the role of French writer Émile Zola in The Life of Émile Zola. But because of his strategy of immersing himself in his roles, Warner Brothers had a little bit of a concern for marketing the movie, because they wondered, did the average moviegoer even know who Émile Zola was? And since Paul Muni was a big box office star, they wondered how anybody would recognize Paul Muni if he was made up so differently as Émile Zola. So Warner Brothers did something in their marketing department that had never been done before. When they created the movie poster for The Life of Émile Zola, they added nothing that gave viewers any idea what the movie was about or who the subject of the movie was. Instead, they found their most attractive photograph of Paul Muni and had their local artist sketch a picture of him and create the poster, hoping that Paul Muni himself would draw people in and let them figure out while they were watching the movie who Émile Zola was and what the movie was all about. The movie turned out to be such a resounding success. Even today, there are some people who consider The Life of Émile Zola the greatest movie biography ever written. That year, it won the Oscar for Best Picture. Nearly 50 years later, another movie about an author also took the Best Picture prize when Meryl Streep played Isak Dinesen in Out of Africa, based on her memoir of her 14 years she spent running a coffee plantation in British East Africa. I was fortunate enough to be asked by Morgan Reynolds Publishing House to write a biography of Isak Dinesen's entire life. And when I researched that book, I was pleased to discover that Isak Dinesen's life before and after the years depicted in the movie were every bit as fascinating as those in Out of Africa. Most inspiring to some of you who are writers or aspiring writers is this story that I learned while I was working on the book. In the last years of her life, Isak Dinesen suffered from excruciating back pain. Yet she kept her commitment to write every day. Some days the pain was so bad, she would literally lie flat on her back on the wooden floor and dictate her stories to her secretary. When you look at the body of Isak Dinesen's work, some of those stories she wrote at that stage in her life are still considered her greatest. In 1992, Denzel Washington graduated from having been a Best Supporting Actor nominee and a Best Supporting Actor winner to earning his first lead actor nomination for his portrayal of Malcolm X. Washington is so dynamic and riveting in his role that if you now watch documentaries about Malcolm X made after 1992, very often the documentarian uses more footage of Denzel Washington giving Malcolm X's speeches than Malcolm X giving his own speeches. In 2000, Javier Bardem played Cuban poet Ronaldo Arenas in the Spanish language movie Before Night Falls. Although he was brilliant in the movie, Javier Bardem and three of the other nominees didn't have much of a chance to win Best Actor because that was the year that Gladiator and Russell Crowe had such tremendous momentum. Come Oscar night, Gladiator and Crowe both won in those categories. But don't feel too bad for Bardem, because 7 years later, he was in that position when the Coen brothers produced No Country for Old Men, and Javier Bardem was nominated for Best Supporting Actor as the heartless hitman that has become an iconic villain in movie history. In that year, No Country for Old Men won Best Picture. Javier Bardem won Best Supporting Actor. In 2002, Nicole Kidman hit her Academy stride when she was nominated for Best Actress as suicidal author Virginia Woolf in The Hours. Though she was tremendously brilliant in the performance, she wasn't a shoo-in to win that year because it was such a great year for Best Actress. Selma Hayek was up for Frida. Diane Lane was up for Unfaithful. And the three top competitors were Nicole Kidman in The Hours, Renee Zellweger in Chicago, and Julianne Moore in Far From Heaven. Up until the night before Oscars, any one of those actresses could have possibly won. As it turns out, in the end, it was Nicole Kidman who won Best Actress. Sometimes, more than one actress or actor is nominated for playing an author in the same film. Only once in the history of the Academy, though, have two different actresses been nominated for the Academy Award in a single film playing the same person. That is, the same author. Kate Winslet was up for Best Supporting Actress as the young Iris Murdoch, and Judi Dench was up for Best Actress playing Murdoch later in her life. Winslet's story involved how she came to prominence as an author and how she fell in love with the man who became her husband. Judi Dench's story takes place late in life when Murdoch was taken care of by her husband as she succumbed to the ravages of Alzheimer's. One of my all-time favorite movies, and one that made me think I wanted to be an author, was Julia, which included Oscar nominees Jason Robards Jr. and Jane Fonda as writers and lovers Dashiell Hammett and Lillian Hellman. By that time, in 1977, I already knew I wanted to be an author, but I didn't know any authors personally, so I really didn't know what a writer's life was like. Julia gave me a Hollywood version of what that life was like, and once I saw that, I was hooked. In the movie, Dash and Lily own a tiny house literally on the beach. One day, Dash goes out to sit at the beach, and Lily sits at her typewriter at the open window with the sea air flowing through her hair, and she's typing and typing and typing and typing until she finishes her play. She goes to the beach, takes it to Dash, lets him read it and give her feedback. He reads it, hands it back to her, and says, "This is good. But Lily, you are a great writer. Make this great." She goes back to the typewriter, types and types and types and types, and then the movie flashes directly to the next scene where she's all dressed up, stepping out of the theater into the lobby where she has just watched her play, and everyone turns, recognizes her, and applauds uproariously for her brilliant work in her play, The Children's Hour. I thought, wow, if that's what the writer's life is, that's the life for me. In 2005, Philip Seymour Hoffman won every single critical award given up to Oscar night for his performance as Truman Capote in Capote. Catherine Keener received several accolades in the supporting category as his lifelong friend and fellow author Harper Lee. They were lifelong friends, and in several of their works, they actually used each other as characters. In Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, Dill, the little boy who comes to Macomb every summer to spend the summer with his aunt and plays with Scout and Jim, is actually based on Truman Capote. That night, Catherine Keener lost the Best Supporting Actress race to Rachel Weisz in The Constant Gardener, but Philip Seymour Hoffman, as expected, took home the Best Actor prize. Perhaps the most true-to-life movie about writers has to be adaptation. Follow me now. Charlie Kaufman is the screenwriter for this movie. In the movie, he is a character played by Nicolas Cage, who is suffering from writer's block as he tries to adapt Susan Orlean's book, The Orchard Thief, into a successful screenplay. So it's a screenwriter writing a screenplay about himself, a screenwriter trying to write a screenplay about another author who is also a character in the movie. Great movie about writers. Adaptation. But only one movie in the history of the Academy Awards has ever swept all 4 acting categories where each of the actors played a famous author and got it and was nominated in each of the categories. And that movie is the epic film of 1981, Reds. In the lead acting category, Diane Keaton and Warren Beatty played revolutionaries, lovers, and authors Louise Bryant and John Reed. Though they were both brilliant in the film, they both lost that year to Katharine Hepburn and Henry Fonda in On Golden Pond. Jack Nicholson made a comeback of sorts in 1981 when he took the role of playwright Eugene O'Neill and was nominated for the first time in 6 years for Best Supporting Actor in Reds. He lost his competition to John Gielgud in Arthur. Character actress Maureen Stapleton earned her 4th Best Supporting Actress nomination of her career as Emma Goldman in Reds. Of all the actors from Reds who were nominated that year, only Maureen Stapleton took home the Oscar. There's a line that you have probably heard innumerable times if you watch movie awards, or any awards actually. It actually gets credited to Maureen Stapleton. Throughout the years, many people have said, in addition to thanking the specific people in their lives, they end by saying, and I want to thank everyone I ever met in my entire life. That great line, which still gets a laugh, actually was originated by Maureen Stapleton. So I got to thinking, wouldn't it be great if there were movies made about the authors who received the Houston Literary Awards tonight? And wouldn't it be exciting for me if I got to be the casting director? So I played a little game and I decided I would choose either an actor or actress who is either an Oscar winner or Oscar nominee that I would cast to play each of the 5 people we just had our discussion with who won the Literary Excellence Awards tonight. These actors can be from any time period in Hollywood, and they can have achieved any level of success with the Academy. I begin with Andrea White. In the role as Andrea White, I would consider casting Vivian Lee or Mary Steenburgen or Meryl Streep, because she can do anything. In the role of Varsha Bajaj, I would consider casting Sophia Loren, Shohreh Aghdashloo, or Meryl Streep, because she can do anything. In the role of Justin Cronin, I would consider casting Gary Cooper, George Clooney, or Meryl Streep, because she can do anything. Okay, enough with the Meryl Streep joke. For Gwendolyn Zepeda, I would consider casting Meryl Streep, or Meryl Streep, or Meryl Streep. Just kidding, Gwendolyn. For Gwendolyn Zepeda, I would consider casting Cher, or Rita Moreno, or Selma Hayek. And finally, for Rashonda Tate Billingsley, I would consider casting Halle Berry, or Queen Latifah, or Jennifer Hudson. And then I had an even better idea. I would imagine that there are some authors tonight who might actually have aspirations to go to Hollywood and be in movies themselves. Now that they've won this major award, they would be in good company because there are other authors who have won impressive awards for their writing who went on to star in movies and then receive Academy Award nominations. In 1973, Jason Miller won the Pulitzer Prize for that championship season. That same year, Miller became a worldwide box office champion when he took the role of Father Karras in The Exorcist and was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. In 1979, Sam Shepard won the Pulitzer Prize for Buried Child. 4 years later, he was cast in The Right Stuff. Now, The Right Stuff was a phenomenal success critically and with the public. So it was guaranteed at that Oscar season that The Right Stuff would definitely be nominated for Best Picture. But the cast was large and impressive. And through the different critical awards, different people were being recognized from this film. So none of the cast members knew exactly who might get nominated for this film. It could be many of them, it could be few. When the Oscar nominees were announced that year, turns out only one star of the film received an acting nomination, and that was Sam Shepard. The Right Stuff is a movie set in Houston about astronauts. I think it would be fun if we created a new movie about the right stuff that takes place in Houston, but that's about authors. Instead of calling it The Right Stuff, we could call it The Right Stuff. And in it, we can cast all 5 of our winners for tonight's Literary Excellence Awards. Writing takes many forms, and each is valid and vibrant. Our 2020 Reader's Choice finalists represent a broad spectrum of literary achievement. Tonight, with the rest of us, they will discover who will be the winner. The winner's name is in this golden envelope. Even remotely, the tension is palpable. Allow me to introduce to you now our Reader's Choice finalists. S.C. Perkins is a 5th-generation Texan who grew up hearing fascinating stories of her ancestry and eating lots of great Tex-Mex. Her first book, Murder Once Removed, was the winner of the 2017 Malice Domestic Best First Traditional Mystery Competition and was an Agatha Award nominee. She resides in Houston, and when she's not writing, she's likely outside in the sun or on the beach. Nkem Tenchenku is a creative writer, filmmaker, and a mother of 4. She has 7 inspirational books and 13 independent films under her belt since 2012. Nkem advocates for battered women, men, and children. She also promotes awareness about mental illness and suicide prevention. Fu Lu immigrated with his family to the United States from Vietnam when he was 4. Lu is now a theologian, philosopher, and artist, creating works in Houston to narrow the divide between ideas and beauty. Joel Edward Goza is an author, speaker, and community advocate. He brings a rigorously researched and community-based perspective to understanding our nation's racial crisis. And Michael Swanson has published more than a dozen novels and multiple short stories. Author of The Angel Baby and the sci-fi bestseller Farlight, he is also known to millions of readers across the world under the pen name M. Millswan. Each finalist is so accomplished and already a winner. I wish that I had 5 envelopes in my hand instead of just this one. And here we go. And the 2020 Reader's Choice Award winner is Enkemp Denchenko. Unfortunately, it appears that Kemp is not able to be with us tonight, so I want to acknowledge her for her great achievement and for the work she does, not only as an author and as a filmmaker, but as an advocate for all people, for their safety and goodwill. Congratulations, Kemp.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a great award, a great feat for a great writer.
Congratulations.
What an
That's
exciting
wonderful.
what an exciting privilege to help celebrate the talented honorees and nominees of this year's awards for the Houston Public Library Foundation. Before we end tonight's festivities, here are a few reminders. The silent auction remains open through October 10th, but the Instabuys are gone as soon as they're purchased. Here are a few of the gems you'll find up for auction. The wine pull is literally loaded with high quality, expensive wines. Thank you to the board members who donated such lovely selections. Dr. Roger Brown, a board certified reconstructive surgeon, donated a Botox and Restylane treatment. If you need a pick-me-up, he and his staff will treat you very well. Thanks also to Sam's Club for the donation of the barbecue grill. This pellet grill is easy to use and the flavors from its barbecue are unmatched. Consider bidding on the beautiful original artwork. Compared to gallery prices, this auction makes the art a steal, and it's all for a good cause. Your bids and donations all support excellent programs related to lifelong learning, literacy and digital literacy, workforce development, access to technology, and an array of international services, all dedicated to helping our community. Although the public library receives tax dollars to operate, the programs rely on your contributions to exist. Your participation this evening makes these programs possible. I'm Roger Leslie, and I'm so glad you joined us tonight. Keep reading. Good night, everyone.